If you live in Asia and dream of visiting Canada, whether to study, work, or reunite with family, something seismic has just happened. Quietly, without fanfare, Canada dropped a travel ban that's already being called the most controversial immigration decision in years. It targets 10 Asian countries. The consequences? Immediate, devastating, and globally disruptive. This isn't just about border control. This is about broken promises, shattered families, and a diplomatic storm brewing between continents. Canadian officials say the policy is about fraud prevention and national security. But critics say it's racial profiling in disguise. With the ban already in effect, millions of lives hang in the balance. Which countries are affected? Why now? And is this a necessary defense or a dangerous overreach? In this video, let's break it all down. Number 10. China. China, long considered a cornerstone of Canada's trade and education strategy, has now found itself on the receiving end of one of the most dramatic policy reversals in recent Canadian history. Once a dependable partner in bilateral trade exceeding $100 billion annually, China is now abruptly blacklisted under Canada's new visa ban affecting 10 Asian countries. The official justification? Allegations of espionage networks operating on Canadian soil, cyber attacks on government infrastructure, and foreign interference in Canadian elections, particularly incidents believed to have influenced Chinese-Canadian voters in key ridings. However, while these accusations are alarming, the Canadian government has failed to release any substantial public evidence to back them up. Critics argue that the lack of transparency reduces the credibility of the move, and some analysts warn that it could be more of a political maneuver than a genuine national security measure. Many see the ban as retaliation for a series of diplomatic slights. China's own restrictions on Canadian academics and officials, its arbitrary detention of Canadian nationals, and unresolved tensions over issues like Huawei's 5G role, Hong Kong's democratic crackdowns, and growing fears around Taiwan's sovereignty. The fallout is immediate and massive. Over 600,000 Chinese nationals are currently in Canada, many as international students, visiting researchers, or employees of multinational corporations. With the new policy, new visa applications will be denied, renewals could be blocked, and even current visa holders could face targeted investigations or revocations. Universities, especially in British Columbia and Ontario, are bracing for financial losses. Business executives warn of multi-billion-dollar investment freezes, particularly in real estate, education, and energy sectors, where Chinese capital has played a dominant role. More dangerously, Beijing may not stay silent. China could respond with counter-sanctions, expel Canadian diplomats, or tighten rules for Canadian firms operating in the mainland. For Canada, this could mark the start of a deep freeze in Sino-Canadian relations, a diplomatic and economic fracture that could take years, if not decades, to repair. Number 9. Nepal. Nepal may not dominate global headlines like China, but for thousands of families, this small Himalayan nation has just been dealt a crippling blow by Canada's new travel ban. The official reasons? Visa overstay rates, concerns about documentation integrity, and economic migration pressure. But behind the bureaucratic language lies a far more disturbing reality. Nepal's economy is deeply dependent on foreign remittances, and Canada has been a critical destination for skilled and semi-skilled workers, students, and caregivers. This ban may not make front-page news in Ottawa, but in cities like Kathmandu, Pokhara, or Chitwan, it's a national disaster. In 2023 alone, Nepalese workers sent home nearly $9 billion in global remittances. Canada accounted for a fast-growing share of that. From truck drivers to food processing laborers, and from early childhood educators to caregivers, Nepalese citizens have increasingly filled gaps in Canada's aging, understaffed workforce. Now, all of that has come to a screeching halt. This is a country that has faced back-to-back tragedies, from the 2015 earthquake to a grinding economic crisis that has pushed many to seek opportunity abroad. And for many Nepalese youth, Canada wasn't just a dream, it was a strategic lifeline. Families sold ancestral land, took out high-interest loans, and paid unscrupulous agents to get their children accepted into Canadian universities or job placements. With the ban now in place, those visa applications are frozen, even if they were previously approved. Students with plane tickets in hand are suddenly in limbo. Workers with job offers are being told not to board. Entire families are plunged into financial chaos and emotional devastation. Number 8. India. India's addition to the travel ban list appears downright personal. India is Canada's single largest source of immigrants, foreign students, and skilled workers. Yet this vital artery of human capital has now been choked off almost overnight. The official rationale includes visa fraud, overstayed temporary permits, and fake documentation, including forged offer letters and bank statements. Yet the political undertone is impossible to ignore. Relations between New Delhi and Ottawa have been tense ever since Prime Minister Trudeau publicly alleged Indian state involvement in the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Sikh separatist living in Canada. India categorically denied the charge, calling it absurd and politically motivated, and responded with its own travel and visa restrictions against Canadians. Since then, diplomatic ties have deteriorated at a rapid pace, with each side expelling diplomats, canceling talks, and cutting trade negotiations. Now, with the new ban in place, tens of thousands of Indian students are trapped in limbo, unable to start school, unsure if their permits will be honored, and left scrambling for legal recourse. Skilled workers, especially in Canada's booming tech and trucking industries, are watching job offers evaporate. Family reunifications are being postponed indefinitely, with spouses, children, and elderly parents caught in bureaucratic crossfire. And India is preparing to strike back. Senior Indian officials are already hinting at reciprocal restrictions on Canadian business visas, tourism, and possibly even Canadian agri-imports, which would be a devastating blow to provinces like Saskatchewan and Alberta. The Indo-Canadian community, a key political bloc in cities like Toronto, Brampton, and Vancouver, is erupting in protest. Many accuse Trudeau's government of turning multiculturalism into a weapon, targeting India not over immigration abuse, but political posturing. Number 7. The Philippines. The Philippines' inclusion feels like Canada shooting itself in the foot. Filipino workers are the beating heart of Canada's caregiving and healthcare sectors. Over 30,000 Filipinos are currently employed as nurses, personal support workers, and caregivers in Canadian hospitals, long-term care homes, and private households. They fill the gaps left by a domestic workforce unable or unwilling to meet the grueling demands of 24/7 care labor. But now, citing over-reliance on foreign labor, fraudulent job offers, and a clogged permanent residency system, the Canadian government has suspended visa processing for most new Filipino applicants. The effect? Thousands of job vacancies suddenly go unfilled. And worse, thousands of dreams are shattered. Many prospective Filipino workers sold property, borrowed heavily, or quit stable jobs in the Philippines to prepare for life in Canada. Agencies that arranged these placements now face collapse. Migrants who were about to be reunited with family members already in Canada find themselves blocked by red tape. Beyond the humanitarian angle lies a deeper economic threat. In 2023, Filipinos in Canada sent home $1.5 billion in remittances, a vital lifeline for communities in the Philippines. This ban doesn't just hurt those individuals. It threatens the financial ecosystem of an entire nation. Worse still, the ban may spark a healthcare staffing crisis in Canada. Already under strain from an aging population and pandemic burnout, Canadian hospitals cannot afford to lose the frontline workers who keep the system running. Yet this is exactly what this ban could do: cut the oxygen supply while claiming to fix the pipes. Number 6. Pakistan. For over a decade, Pakistan has remained on Canada's radar when it comes to immigration integrity risks. Canadian authorities have consistently flagged concerns about document forgery, bogus asylum claims, and national security threats, including individuals suspected of extremist ties. But the new 2025 travel ban marks a drastic escalation. It suspends nearly all visa categories, from student, tourist, work, and even humanitarian, effectively freezing mobility between the two nations. And the timing raises eyebrows. The decision comes just months after Canada quietly expelled 2 Pakistani consular staff for allegedly helping applicants fabricate visa documentation. But while such actions may justify stronger scrutiny, what's causing concern is the indiscriminate nature of the ban. It affects not only high-risk profiles, but also desperate asylum seekers, students with legitimate university offers, and families trying to reunite. So what's the real motive? Is Canada acting purely out of security concerns, or is it collectively punishing an entire population for the failures of a few? Critics say the blanket ban lacks nuance and contradicts Canada's long-standing role as a champion of refugee rights and multicultural inclusion. And with thousands of Pakistani Canadians still waiting to sponsor spouses or parents, this move could fracture families for years to come. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, and current affairs impacting your lives. Number 5. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's descent into economic turmoil in 2022 made international headlines. Shortages of fuel, medicine, food, and a collapsing currency pushed thousands of families into desperation. For many Sri Lankans, especially the educated middle class, Canada was a beacon of hope, offering opportunities for asylum, skilled migration, and student pathways. But with Canada's new travel ban in 2025, that escape route has been abruptly closed. The Canadian government justifies the ban by citing asylum fraud and human trafficking concerns. Officials claim there has been a marked rise in false refugee claims, many orchestrated by smuggling networks posing as migration consultants. These networks allegedly exploit desperate Sri Lankans by offering fake documentation and fraudulent job offers, then abandoning them once they enter the system. However, refugee organizations argue that Canada is punishing the wrong people. They point out that genuine asylum seekers, those escaping violence, political retribution, and economic collapse, are now being blocked, with no safe alternative. Entire families who sold property, borrowed money, and spent years preparing for resettlement are now stranded. Number 4. Bangladesh. With nearly 100,000 Bangladeshis living in Canada, the country has deep-rooted community connections, built on decades of migration, education, and labor exchange. But this relationship now stands on shaky ground. Canada's travel ban places Bangladesh under tight restrictions, halting most temporary visas, including those for spouses, students, and skilled workers. Why? Ottawa points to 2 main issues: visa overstays and marriage fraud. According to immigration officials, a growing number of Bangladeshis who entered Canada on visitor or student visas allegedly remained illegally after their permits expired. Others are accused of entering into fake marriages to gain permanent residency status. But these accusations, while serious, don't reflect the entire community. Many Bangladeshis argue the ban is disproportionate and discriminatory, treating a large, law-abiding population as if it were collectively guilty. And with no clear system to separate genuine applicants from fraudulent ones, thousands are left in limbo. Take the example of family sponsorship. A Bangladeshi man who has been working legally in Ontario for years may now be unable to bring his wife and children. A student with an approved university admission may suddenly have their visa revoked after months of preparation. Number 3. Vietnam. Among all countries affected by Canada's travel ban, Vietnam stands out as the most surprising. Unlike Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, Vietnam hasn't faced recent political turmoil, mass asylum outflows, or high-profile visa fraud scandals. In fact, in the last decade, Vietnam was viewed as a rising economic partner, especially in tech. Canadian companies, especially in AI, software, and data science, have been actively recruiting Vietnamese engineers, many of whom speak English fluently, hold advanced degrees, and fit perfectly into Canada's innovation sectors. So why the sudden U-turn? The government claims the ban is in response to escalating concerns over fraudulent education and work documents. There's been an uptick in allegedly fake job offers, diploma mills, and manipulated academic credentials, leading Ottawa to slam the brakes. But tech companies are furious. Many argue that instead of targeting the fraudsters, Canada is blocking an entire stream of high-skilled, high-potential workers essential to economic growth. With the country already facing shortages in digital talent, the ban may lead to lost contracts, project delays, and stunted startup growth. Number 2. Iran. Iran's inclusion in Canada's sweeping travel ban is one of the most controversial and heartbreaking. Officially, the Canadian government cites national security threats, risks, and cyber espionage as the primary reasons. These are not new concerns. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps has long been designated as a banned entity by Western nations, and Canada's intelligence agencies have consistently flagged cyber intrusions allegedly linked to Iranian actors. But critics, especially within Canada's 80,000-strong Iranian-Canadian community, say this move crosses a line from targeted security enforcement into broad, collective punishment. The ban affects nearly every category: student visas, visitor visas, skilled immigration pathways, and even humanitarian resettlement cases. That means Iranian refugees, many of whom are persecuted dissidents, women fleeing forced marriage, LGBTQ+ individuals, or religious minorities like Baha'is, are now effectively locked out of one of the last safe countries they could turn to. And the damage isn't just emotional. Iranian PhD students at Canadian universities, particularly in fields like engineering, medicine, and AI, are now facing abrupt cancellations of research positions, scholarships, and lab access. Many of them had already uprooted their lives, paid deposits, and even received study permits, only to now be told they can't board the plane. Iranian doctors and medical researchers who were being fast-tracked to help fill shortages in Canadian healthcare are now on pause indefinitely. Some had job offers from hospitals that urgently needed specialists. Families are perhaps the hardest hit. Spouses are now separated indefinitely. Iranian Canadians who have applied to bring over elderly parents for caregiving support are facing rejections with no appeal process. And wedding plans? Cancelled? Funeral goodbyes? Missed. The human cost is immeasurable. Critics argue that while the regime deserves to be isolated, individuals escaping it do not. Canada has long been a refuge for defectors who risk their lives to flee totalitarian rule. But with this ban, even that tiny lifeline may be lost forever. So while North Korea's inclusion may seem routine, the consequences are haunting. For defectors, for displaced families, and for the principle that no one should be condemned to die in the country they were born into. Is your country on Canada's travel ban list? Isn't it frustrating that countries impose a total ban which goes against the right to free movement? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on whether these Asian countries should fight back and impose a travel ban on Canadians. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, changing world order and current affairs. Things you need to stay informed. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned. Number 1. North Korea. Unlike the shock surrounding Iran, North Korea's inclusion in Canada's new travel ban surprises no one. North Korea has long been under strict international sanctions. Diplomatic ties between Ottawa and Pyongyang are virtually non-existent. Canada has no embassy in North Korea and has consistently condemned Kim Jong-un's human rights abuses and missile tests. But what this new policy does is eliminate the final, narrow exceptions that still existed, mainly for humanitarian cases, diplomatic observers, or academic researchers. Previously, rare exceptions allowed North Korean defectors, UN-affiliated workers, or highly specific cultural or humanitarian exchanges to pass through Canada with rigorous screening. These lifelines, no matter how slim, are now completely shut off. The new ban makes it official. Canada has zero tolerance for any movement linked to North Korea. Even if someone has fled the regime and spent years being vetted through the United Nations or is a stateless refugee seeking family reunification in Canada, the answer is now simply no. The move is symbolic, but powerful. It reinforces Canada's alignment with Western allies in taking an uncompromising stance on human rights and nuclear non-proliferation. Yet it also means that Canada has now fully closed the door on offering any pathway out of one of the world's most brutal regimes.